Forward, yes.
I always forget. Here we go. Okay.
Happy New Year and good evening. Welcome back to the JCPS NAACP Collaborative Forum, Community Forum. I am, and I'm sure you all remember, I am Michelle Patrick and the Education Chair of the Louisville Branch NAACP. And my co-moderator is Mr. Ian Brandon, the Satellite Office Supervisor for the Department of Diversity, Equity, and Poverty for this evening. Before we begin, as usual, I would like for you to keep your microphones on mute. This action will eliminate any background noise that may disturb our presenters. There will be a question and answer period and at the end of the presentation. In our efforts to make this forum more viable, there is now an evaluation link for the forum. Tonight, the forum's focus is on educating students, parents, and the community at large on HBCU benefits and their application process. At this time, I would like for Mr. Brandon to talk about the links that have been added and to welcome any guests.
Thank you, Ms. Patrick. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As Ms. Patrick said, my name is Ian Brandon. I am the Satellite Office Supervisor for the district, and I bring greetings on behalf of the Department of Diversity, Equity, and Poverty and Chief Marshal. I want to take a moment to kind of quickly survey the room. I want to take a moment to acknowledge any board members that may be present. I don't see any as yet. If I'm missing someone, I'll pause for a moment, allow you the time to address the group. Okay. All right, seeing none. As Ms. Patrick mentioned, we do have a couple links for you all to this evening. I will be placing a sign-in link for those educators who will be receiving PD credit or ELA credit. And then towards the end of tonight's forum, I will be inputting a survey link. We are looking for your feedback. We want your feedback on how we can continue to make these forums better. We want to know who you would like to hear from. So please be on the lookout for that. And at this time, I will turn it back over to you, Ms. Patrick.
Thank you, Ian. Tonight, I have the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker. That is Dr. Bridget Burpo. She is a native of Birmingham, Alabama, and has joined the University of Louisville faculty in 2019. She currently serves as the Assistant Dean of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the College of Education and Human Development, as well as a clinical assistant professor in sports and administration program. Prior to joining U of L, she worked in marketing of consumer packaged goods for companies such as R.J. Reynolds, Tobacco Company, Coca-Cola Refreshments, and General Mills, Inc. Dr. Burpo's corporate background and love for sports informed her research and practice, which has influenced her passion for organizational culture and how it plays an integral role in the development of leadership and innovation. Dr. Burpo earned her bachelor's degree in sales and marketing from Tuskegee University and her master's degree in administration of higher education at Auburn University. When time permits, Dr. Burpo enjoys playing tennis, entertaining friends and family at her home, and traveling internationally to learn about other cultures throughout the world. At this time, I give you Dr. Bridget Burpo.
Thank you, Ms. Patrick. I appreciate the warm welcome and introduction. And I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Is it okay for me to go ahead, Ian? Ian, are you? Okay, there we go. I was waiting for you to close yours out.
Sorry
All
about
right.
that.
That's okay. So now I got y'all set up. Let's start from the beginning. Okay, so again, my name is Dr. Bridget Burpo. I am an HBCU alumni, and I'm also an HBCU researcher. So many of the things that I research are related to, well, almost everything is related to HBCUs and higher education for African Americans. But I have the privilege of talking to you all tonight about the HBCU and U series with JCPS, as well as a little bit of context about historically Black colleges and universities in general. So to start, my background is I'm a native of Birmingham, Alabama. I research HBCU athletics and African American culture. So I am an anthropologist, but I study organizational culture primarily. I'm also an HBCU graduate, again, Tuskegee University, 2007. And this was me about 40 years ago when I was a member of the marching band at Tuskegee. So not quite 40 years, but it's been a little while. If you ask my students, they'll tell you that it was about 100 years ago. So something that is, we've seen a lot more attention being given to HBCUs within the recent years. A lot of it is related to sport, where athletes are joining in and bringing attention to HBCUs. Deion Sanders brought a lot of attention to Jackson State University, where a lot of people knew Jackson State, or people went to Jackson State football games for the band, and now they go for the football team. So we've seen a lot of attention given to HBCUs, but some of the things, some of these pictures on the screen are also the other important factors of HBCU. So it's not just about sport, it's not just about the band, it's not just about pop culture. It's more so about having a safe haven for Black students as well as Black faculty and staff on these campuses. So what HBCUs do for Black communities is they provide a safe space to learn where race is not a factor in your experience as much as it is on a predominantly white university campus. So to give context, what I like to do is give an overview. So some of you may be familiar with HBCUs. However, I want to make sure that those of you who are not understand what an HBCU is. So it is a historically Black college or university.
Did she freeze? I think she's frozen.
People in the South. Did someone say something? Or was that me?
You were frozen.
Was I?
Yes,
Okay. What did y'all miss?
everything.
The whole time I was frozen?
No. Just on that slide with.
Okay.
Just go to that one.
Okay. So what HBCUs are, these are historically Black colleges and universities, and these are institutions that were founded prior to 1964 with the purpose of educating Black citizens, free Black citizens in the North and formerly enslaved people in the South. And it is important to understand that this is a federal designation. So this is not a description of the student body population, which is what I think a lot of people confuse historically Black colleges and universities with minority serving institutions. So HBCUs have a federal designation, and in order for them to keep their federal designation, they have to remain accredited. So right now there are just over 100 accredited HBCUs in the mainland United States and one in the US Virgin Islands. And again, because it is not a description of the student body population, there are two HBCUs that have a majority white student population. Both of them are in West Virginia. So West Virginia State University and then Bluefield State College. So again, the significance of HBCUs is pretty prevalent with pop culture, but it's also important to understand the significance in terms of educating Black Americans in the United States. So over 50% of Black public school teachers in America graduated from an HBCU. HBCUs produce 25% of STEM degrees that are obtained by African Americans. And that is significant because HBCUs are less than 3% of all higher education institutions. So HBCUs are a very small amount of all higher education institutions. However, 25% of STEM degrees that African Americans have, they earn them at an HBCU. So STEM fields are very prevalent at HBCUs as well. 70% of African American dentists have earned their degrees at HBCUs. 75% of all Black veterinarians have degrees from an HBCU. 50% of all Black PhDs have a degree from an HBCU, and 50% of Black faculty at predominantly white institutions have a degree from an HBCU. So I check off both of those. Also, HBCUs have lower tuition rates. On average, they're almost 30% less than comparable institutions within the same state. And then they tend to meet the needs of low income and first generation students through a more nurturing environment. So again, there's a sense of or a culture that is tied to being nurturing to students on those campuses. Okay, so hold on, because I got to get rid of some of this stuff on the screen. Okay, so some things to understand about HBCUs in terms of academic and extracurricular culture. There are things that are very salient, or when people think of HBCUs in terms of culture, they think about the extracurricular. So they think about the band and sports and Greek life, and they think about the campus kings and queens. However, some of the things that I try to emphasize with students and their parents or their families quite often is the environment within the classroom. So the academic environment is also very conducive to completion of degrees, because that is the ultimate goal of going to college, is so that you can finish and have a degree. So smaller classrooms, emphasis on skill development and practical application rather than theory. So where students are learning a lot of skill development, and they're also learning a lot of transferable skills as well. And then also Black cultural references are embedded in the courses. So when I was at Tuskegee, and this is something that if you ask a lot of HBCU graduates, when we had American history, our American history already had Black people involved in that American history. So we existed outside of being enslaved. And we existed outside of simply marching in the Deep South for civil rights. So when we learn American history, we learn about the contributions of Black members of society, and that's something that is important for social identity development as well. So for Black students, it's important to see your history, to see yourself as more than someone who has had to struggle throughout history. Although that is true, it is important and empowering to see ourselves as more. So about HBCU and U, this is a program that we developed with as a collective with JCPS and the NAACP. And the purpose of it was to prepare and guide students through identifying what schools they want to attend, selecting the school, the application process, also how to matriculate through college so that they finish in a timely manner, funding schools, all of these different things to make sure that students are prepared for college. Now, a lot of the things that we cover within the program are transferable to any institution, because you have to fund your education no matter where you go. You have to have good study habits no matter where you go. You still have to go through the campus visit process and things like that. However, our emphasis is on HBCUs because that is a demographic of institutions that are often left as alternatives to larger institutions that tend to be predominantly white institutions. So what we do is it's led by myself, so I lead it, and also Ms. Patrick also participates in it, and Dr. Bonnie Marshall and Ian Brandon. We all meet with students once a month on a Saturday for 2 hours. And what we go over, there are 3 areas that we cover. So we cover financial preparation, academic preparation, and then personal preparation for attending an HBCU. And we also use a cohort model so that there's a sense of community and also accountability with our participants. So the goal is to build community so that when students go off to these different HBCUs, and a lot of them are interested in the same schools, they have someone that they know already on that campus. Their parents know each other, and there is already a sense of community within Louisville here when they come home, but also on that campus as well. So some of the things that we cover, we talk about searching for the right HBCU and what that looks like in terms of your personal considerations and your academic considerations. So of course, anything that you or any institution that you attend, you have to consider finances. Again, that's something that's huge, and that's one of the greatest concerns that families have when planning for their student to attend college. Also looking at family structure and dynamics, the location, and their mental health. So all of those are personal considerations. But then we also talk about academic considerations, and we really try to drive home the idea of planning your academic career based on what your career aspirations are. So we start with, what do you want to do long term? What career do you want to go into? And then what degree do you need to get into that? And then what types of experiences do you need to have in order to prepare you for your career? So we go over academic interests, so what academic programs they're interested in enrolling in based on their career aspirations. And we are going to this spring start talking about specific learning styles. So visual learning style, audio, kinesthetic, or a combination, and then developing study skills and learning skills based on that specific learning style, whether that is recording lectures or having to write notes multiple times so that you can remember what was learned. So these are some of the things that we discuss in their search for the right HBCU. And then we also talk about the application process. So what types of application materials, and also asking for application fee waivers to help supplement the cost of applying to colleges, going over an essay and a statement of intent. In fact, this month, that is what we'll be going over, is some essays. We'll do some practice essays. We'll talk about how to build a strong recommendation pool. So who should be writing recommendation letters for the students, who can write a strong recommendation letter, and things like that. And then also standing out. So looking at, yes, people or the application, excuse me, the admissions representatives from the institutions will be looking at your academic success, but they'll also be looking at your extracurricular involvement and your community service and involvement. So making sure that they understand now is a good time to start volunteering and joining community organizations, because that's what helps cushion your application material. So it's not just about how you can succeed in the classroom, it's also about being a well-rounded student. And then the bread and butter of what most people want to know about when we talk about attending college is funding higher education. So we talk about the difference between scholarships and grants, and also financial aid. So things that you have to pay back with interest versus the things that you do not have to pay back. Usually you do not have to pay back. So being mindful of how competitive university scholarships are versus national scholarships. So national scholarships being most competitive, and university scholarships being very competitive. And then also asking the academic units on campus. So if it is a college of education, asking them what funds do they have available to supplement the cost of education as well. And so what we found in this program is that a lot of the questions, again, they're tied to funding higher education, but a lot of it is because these are first generation students. So a majority of the students who are in the program come from a first generation background. So they'll be the first in their family to either attend or graduate from a college or university at all, and starting a tradition of graduating from HBCUs. And so answering a lot of those questions that tend to go unanswered, and a lot of things that are assumed that students know or that their families know, that is what we try to cover within the HBCU and U series. So these are all some really important things that we try to cover within the program to prepare the next generation of college alumni, but a heavy emphasis on HBCUs because I am an HBCU graduate. A lot of the people who are putting this program together either are HBCU graduates or prioritize and respect and value HBCUs as well, with regard to its importance within the African American community, or just having a safe space to learn as well. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and we can start the question and answer portion of the forum.
Well, thank you, Dr. Burple. We have 20 minutes. Timing that. Basically, we start off, but if there is someone in the audience that has a question, just let us know by raising your little hand up there and say, I have a question. And they have them in the chat. So Ian, would you like to read the first one that's in the chat?
Absolutely. The first question is, when does HBCU and U meet and where?
Yes, so we meet once a month. This month we'll meet on the last Saturday of the month, and we meet at the satellite office at Shawnee. We meet from 10 a.m. until 12 p.m. There is an application process that students applied for it in last fall. And I don't want to be too ambitious, but I would like to say that we'll be doing this again next year. I think that it has been successful so far. So I'm going to go ahead and claim that victory that we'll continue to do this next year as well. And our students that are in the program, I see another question that's related to that. So we have students that are freshmen through seniors that are participating. So we have students who are getting a head start on it. They are freshmen at different schools in JCPS. We have freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors who are participating. And yes, she's a junior in college, but she could still take advantage of it if she still needs to learn a little bit more about like study skills or finding supplemental funding for her college education.
I noticed that someone asked, is there a cost? No, there is
Nope.
no cost. Jefferson County Public Schools is sponsoring this. They understand the importance of it. And we have to thank Dr. Marshall for giving us the green light on this. And it's very, very exciting every Saturday to get up and see those individuals come in and participate in something that is going to benefit them the long run. I have a question I want to jump in here because I think it's very important for us to understand as a parent. How do I get all the information I need in order to prepare my kid for college? Where should I start getting that information?
When you say the information, where do you start? Do you mean on the school or on the process of going to college?
Just taking me through the whole process.
Yeah. Okay. So each school now, Ian, you can correct me if I'm incorrect, but each school has counselors and they should be responsible for getting that process started for students who are planning to attend college in general. So I would say start there, contact the counselor and see what resources they have, and also see what process they plan to go through in terms of educating the student about their options for attending college as well. I think that that's a good place to start, is talking to the counselors, because that's what they're there for. And then also don't be afraid to reach out to these different institutions yourself. So again, these are more nurturing environments, and so when you reach out to people and say, hey, I just want to know a little bit more about your program. My student is going to be attending college next year, or within the next 2 years. They're interested in engineering or education or business, and they're interested in your institution. Can we plan a visit? And usually it's not a difficult process to schedule a visit on campus with these different institutions. So I would say start there. But I think that being involved in holding the schools accountable is important as well. So some of the things that parents discuss when we have our sessions for HBCU and U, they talk about how the counselors don't necessarily talk about HBCUs, and they kind of assume that there are that students know what they need to be doing to go to college. And so I think that when parents step in and hold counselors accountable in that way, I think that that's helpful for them to know that there are some gray areas, and there are some barriers to access that they may not be aware of, because they've been doing it for so long that they assume that people know what they know. So I think that that's a good place to start.
I would
Okay, I
also
think
add in there, along with the counselors, the family resource service coordinators. I know some parent and guardians have different relationships. I know some students, for whatever reason, may be closer with the family resource coordinators. They work hand in hand with those counselors. So I think from an effective standpoint, coming in from both angles is good.
I noticed we have additional questions in the chat. You want to go back to I think someone wanted to know, do they have to be a JCPS student? I guess is this to what if they graduated from a Catholic school? I think this question is in regard to I guess to
HBCU and
participate.
you.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah. I did respond in the chat, but this year was essentially the pilot of this program, and it was only open to JCPS students. But I think given the amount of interest in this program and the way things are going, to Dr. Burpo's point, we will be doing this again next year, and the hope and plan is to expand it and make it available to all students within the county.
We will, I think we might have some spots that may be open for this semester. If you are interested, would you tell us how individuals can contact you to find out additional information? Ian or Dr. Burple?
Yeah, I put my email in the chat. I saw a couple people ask about potentially getting some of the data Miss Dr. Burpo put in our presentation, or the presentation in general, but I will put my email in the chat. That's the best way to get a hold of me, and more than happy to follow up with questions about the program, sign-ups, when we're starting again, etc.
And I noticed there's another question. It wants to know, how was the program rolled out to students, advertising? Which one of you all can address that one for us? I know I could, but I'm gonna let you all do it.
I'll start it out. Well, after we got the approval and things went full steam ahead, I politely asked Dr. Burpo to do a promotional video for me. So we rolled that out, just introducing Dr. Burpo, who she is, why she is facilitating this, what the program is. So we sent that out as kind of a teaser to the program to generate interest. And that was done via social media. After that, we established the essentially the application process, and that was also promoted via social media. And tying back into the schools directly, we sent the application process, the form, all the links, the flyers to specific schools. That's where we started. We wanted to keep um, the demographic a certain way due to transportation issues, because we weren't providing transportation for the program. Then interest grew, and so we expanded it to all JCPS students, and that communication would have come from, again, the we call them Friskies, but the Family Resource Service Coordinators and the school counselors. So they received this information, and our hope was that they disperse that to parent and guardian. So that's essentially how it was rolled out. First teased via social media, and then we essentially blasted all the schools with the information in hopes that they would also email the community. Did I miss anything, Dr. Burbo?
No, that was it. Yeah.
I noticed we have that's a good question. We have a question that said, what questions would you ask a college admissions counselor? That is a great question.
Yeah, that is a good question. So I would ask, so the thing to understand is if you have program specific questions, it's best to ask a faculty member or representative from that academic unit. If you have admission specific questions, then there's a different set of questions. So I'm going to go over both. For admissions, I would ask about the admissions process and the timelines. I would ask about fee waivers. Do they have a waiver for application fees? I would ask about the average SAT or ACT score that they accept. And I would ask about the essentially how long does it take to hear something back? So once you hear back or once you apply, how long does it take to hear something related to acceptance from the institution? I also would ask them about official campus visit days. So if they have like a big day that's like high school visitation day, what days those take place on, because those are good days to go, because then you have all of the academic unit representatives in one spot, because they'll have like a little fair in the morning. They also allow you to eat in the cafeteria. You can go to a sporting event. The different buildings are open for high school visitation days. You can see more students on campus, especially if you're planning to visit on a weekend. It's important for students to see what the campus vibe is like. And so having students on campus is important and helpful as well. And if they don't have a specific high school visitation day, or if some of the institutions went to a virtual model for it during COVID, and if they haven't gone back to in person, then I would ask about what is the process for scheduling an individual campus visit. And then when you do go on a campus visit, some of the things that are important to do, we talked about this last semester, to make sure that not only do you visit the academic unit, but you speak with a faculty member that teaches in that academic unit. So not just looking at the classrooms, but sitting down with a faculty member to kind of gauge what type of learning environment they tend to have. So usually faculty, yes, we all have different personalities and different ways of doing things, but a lot of times there's a specific culture within that academic unit that you can kind of gauge from meeting one or two of the faculty members. So that is, you can find out about the class size. You can find out about what the assignments are. They experiential assignments? Do they rely heavily on tests or examinations? Do they have opportunities for internships or what we call experiential learning? So whether it be like a trip, any type of study abroad or anything like that. So that's usually what you can ask the academic units. And then you want to ask the and so you want to ask the admission staff about scholarships as well, so the university level scholarships. And then you want to ask the academic unit or the college, so College of Business, College of Education, College of Engineering. You want to ask them about their unit specific scholarships that they have as well. And those tend to be smaller, but they are very helpful, and they supplement tuition as well as the cost of books and supplies and labs and things like that. You also want to, if you go for an individual visit, you want to make sure that you stop by the cafeteria so you can see and have the student make sure that the food looks like something that they could eat, because that's where they're going to live. And along those same lines, you want to see, I told students to visit the nicest residential building and the worst residential building, because what you want to do is kind of gauge, this is as good as it's going to get, and this is the worst that it can be in making your decision. So whether or not you would be comfortable if you are assigned a dormitory or a residence hall that is not as nice as the nicest one, are you still going to be okay with that? And if the nicest one is still not up to par, are you going to be okay with that too? So being mindful of the living environment, because that plays a big part in your success as well as your comfort while you are trying to learn on that campus as well. I'm trying to think of some more things that, I mean, that's a lot of questions, but I mean, you can ask there anything that you need to know or you want to know or you think you might need to know, ask everything. I wouldn't hold anything back. I would ask everything.
I also want to add to this, but this program, HBCNU, did require parents to participate.
Mhm.
And so if your child signs up for this program, you as well must commit to that, because she's providing information for you as well. And it's like she said, there is the need for us meeting each other, talking to each other, and moving this thing along, which is we know for parents, is very, very undaunting. Your child says, I want to go here, and you're thinking, how am I going to pay for that? Well, this program will help you do just that, give you the information that you need to go out and slay that dragon called financial aid. So we definitely hope that it is looked at. And since I love middle school kids, I think we need to start even earlier. So it is our hope that maybe we get to look at middle school children this summer to help them look and start thinking about their college attendance. Also, it was a question about it was a question up there. Someone asked about special needs. As you know, we
Yeah, I
turn
do
no
want to.
one away.
Yeah, I want
Okay.
to address that as well.
Yeah.
So I am a university faculty member, and I do teach students who are on the spectrum, have autism or other types of learning disabilities. So I would never tell anyone to discourage anyone who has a diverse ability. I would never tell anyone to discourage them from attending college, because I've seen students do very well. And they also, campuses are required to have a disability resource center. So even if a student has some challenges, there are resources on campus that are required federally to help them matriculate through college as well. So identifying the disability resource center, so adding that to the campus visit if your student has some form of learning disability or a special need. But I don't count out anybody when it comes to a college education.
Someone also asked about a college tour. It was in our mind that we wanted to do one, but funding is always limited. So we were not able to do that, but we are going this year to Simmons, I believe, college for one of their games. But we know how important that is for students to get to look at the campus and what's going on. But unfortunately, we did not have the funding for that. Well, we got 2 more minutes. Yes, Ian.
No, I was just gonna piggyback on that college tour piece. So we were in the works of taking a trip to Kentucky State University, but as Ms. Patrick said, that didn't quite pan out. But we were able to secure a very similar opportunity with Simmons College. So on January 25th, we will be taking some students to basketball game. It's a women's game. Again, tying in with the HBCU theme, they will be playing Fisk. So these students get opportunity to meet some of the coaches, athletic staff, some of the players. They'll get a meal, a tour. So not exactly what we were aiming for with the Kentucky State trip, but something very similar. But
Yeah.
next year, that is the plan to include a tour.
Right. Again, this is the inaugural year. So essentially we're building the program as we go now.
Well, I'm down to 1 minute and 18 seconds. Are there any other questions out there? Or is it something I think let me see.
Got one. If
Okay.
you're okay. Well, obviously, Dr. Burpo, we have a relationship around this, obviously, and you shared with me on many occasions the sense of belonging that you have and have had, and the HBCU experience has just strengthened that. Can you touch on that a little bit? Because I think that is a major benefit of a HBCU, and I would just like you to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I work at a predominantly white institution, and very often people ask me about how to create the HBCU experience on a PWI campus, and my answer is you cannot. And that is because predominantly white institutions were not founded for us, and we, no matter how hard we try to be embedded in the central culture, we will not be. So that's why we have our Black student unions and things like that, which are very important for those institutions and for students on those campuses. However, so there are three things that every university is essentially built on. So all universities, and that's research, scholarship, and then community engagement. Well, HBCUs have a fourth pillar, and that is social justice. And that is because in the way that we were founded, we were founded by Black people, for Black people, with the emphasis of accessing equity and equality in society, as well as opportunity, and creating our own within a system and an environment that was in opposition of us. And so when you're on an HBCU campus, that is still very much a part of the culture, is social justice. Even when I was in my business courses, yes, I was taught a lot of business acumen, but I was also taught to stand firm in my own identity and to bring my actual Black identity into the workspace rather than code switching. I was a part of a lot of organizations. One of those was we had campus, we would have essentially a career fair on campus, and there were a lot of large name institutions that would come and recruit. So there was Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, General Mills, Coca-Cola, which is how I was able to work for those organizations as well. A lot of GE. So there were a lot of like big name corporations that would come, and they always had, they would always say that they knew that they would get good quality students when they recruited from an HBCU because of the way that we were held accountable in our classes. And there is something to say about having faculty that looks like you, because they hold your feet to the fire. So a lot of the things that in high school I may have gotten away with, I couldn't get away with when I went to Tuskegee, because my teachers or my professors knew me by name. They knew, who I was, they knew how to contact me, and they actually cared about me. So one faculty member that is still my mentor to this day, I think about her in particular because she was my marketing professor. And so when I first got in her class, I tried to skate a little bit, and she really held me accountable. She was like, Miss Verpo, I know that you could do better than what you're doing. And I can see it in you because when you participate in class, I get a different energy than when the assignments that you're submitting. And so that's something that even with all of my education, I've only gotten that at Tuskegee. I've only gotten that from that HBCU experience. And I've gotten it sometimes in my K through 12 experience when I had a Black teacher who would hold me accountable because his or her expectations of me were so much higher than the white faculty who taught me. And I think that that's part of it too. So when it comes to academic accountability, there's we are held accountable. And then we have a really strong network where even after we graduate, we still keep in touch with each other. That's why homecomings are so important and such a big part of HBCU culture, because we are very much family-like. So when we come back, it is like seeing some cousins or some old aunts and uncles. It is very much like a family.
Well,
I could go on and on, but
well, I would like to now we've talked about the application, we talked about the schools in general. Now I need to switch to one of the scholarship committee chair, Dr. Bonnie Marshall, who is instrumental in getting scholarships, money for scholarships to help all students apply through the NAACP. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Bonnie Marshall, our scholarship chair.
Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year to you. We're glad you're with us this Thursday evening. I am going to talk about the scholarship program and how to support the scholarship program financially. Every year, we give award scholarships to students who make applications on our website. And if I'm not mistaken, they have a slide that shows how to do that. This past year, we awarded over $81,000 in scholarships to students going to all universities, PWIs and HBCUs, just all over the country. The way the students apply for the scholarship, they must do it electronically. They go on the NAACP website, and I believe it's NAACP.org, and then go to scholarship and fill out the application. The deadline is there. All of the requirements are there. Everything that a student needs to apply. We also send those that application information out to all of the high school senior counselors. So it's there and it's ready for them to apply. The deadline date, I believe, is May 30th, or we may have moved it to June 15th to make sure we could get official transcripts from all of the students. We have excellent students. This year, all of the students that applied and were awarded scholarships, we've checked on them, they're doing well. The ones who have communicated back with us, we've had lunch with some of them, we've called, we've written, we do a check on them to make sure they're doing well. We have corporate scholarships, that's through McDonald's, who has awarded $10,000 each year to the NAACP since 2005. We have endowed scholarships, the Levi Alexander and the Salone Worthington, Those were individuals who left money to the NAACP that we use the interest off those accounts to have scholarships available. Then we have the private donation scholarships. We have the Dr. Geneva Stark Education Scholarship for a student majoring in education. We have the Marshall Family Scholarship, and they can major in any area. These are the two scholarships that we're asking for donations to help support and provide awards for students. The other scholarship that we have is the Kaufman and Kaufman Scholarship. It's for people working on their terminal degrees in 3 areas: law, medicine, and religion. Those are the 3 areas that are awarded scholarships from the Kaufman and Kaufman Scholarship. So we have the corporate, we have the endowed, and we have the private scholarship, private donations. The graduate, let me back up. The McDonald's, Levi Alexander, Salome Worthington, Marshall, and Geneva Stark scholarships are for undergraduate students. And the Kaufman and Kaufman, again, is for the students who are getting their terminal degrees in law, medicine, and religion. We really need your help. Last year, our goal was $80,000. We made that goal a little over it, and 45 students. This year, we set a goal for $100,000. So we're asking for your help and support in providing scholarships to our very worthy students in the Jefferson County area. Thank you. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
I don't at this time. I don't see any in the chat. We will make sure that, I think she said again that, and I just looked up, it appears that the Louisville branch NAACP website is under construction right now. And so it is louNAACP.org. And
Correct.
so that is correct. So if you can get that and go periodically to the site to see when the scholarship application is open. I'm sorry that we didn't have that. We were unaware that it was under construction right now. Dr. Marshall, thank you so much for sharing with us. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Ian to talk to us about what our February community forum will be about.
Thank you, Ms. Patrick, and thank you, Dr. Marshall. So our next forum will be Thursday, February 9th, and that is essentially our student celebration forum. So we will have on a few representatives from our Black Student Union groups, a middle and high school representative, and then we also have specifically a new group, a new word group, formerly Girls on the Rise, but is now transitioning into a group organization called Becoming. And so we will have representation on that group and just highlighting what these students have been doing, their upcoming plans, how other students can get involved, and just celebrating students' work and their goals and aspirations.
Thank you, Ian. That's one of my favorite forums, is to see the children get on and perform. I enjoy all of it. I would like to say that this concludes our forum tonight. I look forward to February's forum. And I want to thank everybody for giving up of their time this evening to be with us. Good night, be safe, and if you haven't been vaccinated, get vaccinated. Thanks again. Good night.
And again, for those of you who may have missed it, the sign-in link is in the chat. If you just scroll up, you will see that. You'll also see the post-forum survey. We would really love your feedback on tonight's forum, but also there's a space there for comments. If you would also include a department or organization you may want to have us connect with for forums next year. So again, good night. Thank you all.